Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Bituation Room podcast live. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for pressing play. If you're listening in the future, turns out I did have COVID, y'all. I said it was bird flu, but that was maybe wishful thinking. This is your host, Francesca Fiorentini, who indeed has been struggling. It's going to be one of them COVID brain shows. The point is, she's still out there, you guys. It is still out there. And you all need to not be like me, and you need to get vaccinated, boosted. Obviously, I'm vaccinated, but a while ago. Get boosted, wear a mask, and treat everyone around you like like they're gonna kill you. Let's go back to the pain that was, because it still is. And so many people are suffering with long COVID. Man, I could even think of like 4 people right off the top of my head, friends who are. So just a word to the wise, please do your duty, take care of one another, take care of your family. Luckily, my family has been spared. I've been double masking in my own house. I've been quarantined in my room. And it's rough. It is rough. So anyway, welcome. We have such a great show. Don't worry. There's still room to talk about the news. Comedian Alex Pearlman is here. I'm super excited to have this man on the show, kind of at long last. It feels like, we've needed to do this. We're going to be talking about Donald Trump sicking the National Guard finally on DC, a few years too late. And when all the militias have now been absorbed into ICE. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about Prager University. That is PragerU, the far-right conservative educational outlet that is poised to take over the role of PBS. Not assuredly, but probably and slowly and definitely. So we'll talk a little bit about that and play you some fun, insane clips and the things that they've been cooking up over there. And also pour one out for Arthur and Daniel Tiger and Sesame Street and PBS, just generally, it's been a long time. I've had my problems. We'll talk about them later, but I love you ultimately, and I support journalism, especially local journalism. Also, we're going to talk with writer based in Brooklyn, Jasper Nathaniel, who has been visiting the West Bank, who has been reporting on not just the genocide in Gaza, but the ongoing ethnic cleansing, the settlement expansion, the settler violence in the West Bank. So we're going to be talking to him. And again, that's sort of where we're going to put, I don't know, how many times have you broken down crying in the last 48? Me? Like twice, 3 times? With all the news that has come out of Israel Palestine, it truly is heartbreaking. But hopefully we can make some sense of it and redouble our fights. And I'm excited to have Jasper on. Quick little programming note. At long last, our live Seattle show, for which we spared no expense or detail, that was held in South Seattle about a week ago, is finally out for your little eye holes. No, your ear holes first. Working on the eye holes thing. It is out. I'm really excited. We interviewed mayoral candidate Katie Wilson, who since that event has gone on to the final round, the general. She got more votes than the sitting current mayor of Seattle. Again, this is someone who comes from an activist background. This is someone who believes in lowering the cost of basic living when it comes to one of the most expensive cities in this country. But on top of that, someone who really is responding to the voters, right? Voters in Seattle are way more progressive. They've consistently voted to tax the wealthy in Seattle in order to pay for things like free transportation, low-income public housing, not just private public partnerships, but truly public housing. The residents of Seattle want that, and yet their current mayor hasn't been doing squat. So please go support Katie Wilson. Listen to the show, to say nothing of the brilliant Ijoma Oluo, who just like brought it and had a pretty much the best take I've ever heard on this whole Sydney Sweeney's blue jeans BS. So take a listen. I hope you enjoy it. And you have to know that we've got more live shows coming up, specifically stand-up, which I always love, of course, because like the job is make you laugh, and let's do it, Houston. So Houston on Thursday, August 28th, there are tickets going fast at the to the Punchline. Get there. Patrons get $5 off your ticket. If you're a patron in the Houston area or in Texas, you know who you are. You get $5 off. So stay tuned for that coupon code, or it's there somewhere. The point is we will also be in Pasadena at my show, New World with Disorder, on September 5th. That's a Friday. We've changed it from August 30th, September 5th, everybody. Mark your calendars. Comedian River Butcher, who's been on this show. Asif Ali, comedian and actor, is going to be on. Kari Assad is going to be on, as well as Matt Lieb and myself. It's going to be such a great show. Oh, my God. Finally, Brooklyn, Monday, October 13th. Get your tickets to the Bell House. Me, Matt Lieb, co-headlining. You do not want to miss that. And with that, lastly, if you do want to support this show, patreon.com/bitchuationroom. I am cooking up just a wonderful little slice of reporting, whatever, a deep dive, a new video for y'all that should be out next week, early next week. Patrons get access to it one day early. Patreon.com/bitchuationroom. You get so many other perks, discounts on our merch, 20% off our merch, 25% off our sponsor, discounts on the American Prospect magazine, 60% off the American Prospect magazine, which I write for, and access to our Ask Me Anythings. And I'll be doing one next Tuesday after the stream. So 3 p.m., 6 p.m. Eastern after the stream. So if you're a patron, you can send in questions, you can watch live, you can watch back, all the things. Anyway, and with that, enough yammering, let's get to it. He is a comedian and the co-host of the Too Many Tabs podcast, and you probably have seen him righteously screaming on Instagram, TikTok, and other social media. Please welcome Alex Pearlman.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Hey,
Alex,
I made it.
Where have you been? Why haven't we done this before?
I don't know. I was talking, it was in my group chat with some buddies of mine, and I was like, hey, I'm looking for podcasts and some people to reach out to. And my buddy Satoyo, who was my feature when I went on the road last year.
That's a great name.
You got to do the Bitchuation Room. And I said, what's the Bitchuation Room? Because the one thing I've discovered with the internet, the longer I've been doing comedy for 25 years, but I've been doing social media for like 2. And we're all, you can be the most famous person in the world, but it depends on the algorithm and it depends on which platform you're mostly on.
Yes.
So I was a Twitter guy, and then Elon bought it and he destroyed it. And then I was like, fuck that. And I started posting on TikTok, and then TikTok took off. And then I was like, then they were like, we're going to ban TikTok. I was like, well, I guess I got to open an Instagram. And then I opened an Instagram, and then they're like, we're still going to ban TikTok, and Instagram's not going to pay anymore. And I said, what the fuck? I guess I got to do a YouTube. So now I'm trying to do a YouTube, and none of them want me to talk about Jeffrey Epstein anymore. So it's become a whole thing. So it's fun, but I'm so excited to be here.
I love that you were like, this like loyalty of not one at a time. I got to do, because I feel like I got to post everywhere all the time, blah, 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 and you're just like, nope. Just gonna burn through them.
I'm 41 and now I have a toddler. I don't have time. And so it's been a drop across all of them. And then each one is different. Each one's slightly different in what they're looking for.
Yes.
They have different audiences. And I look at it the same way I've looked at doing stand-up comedy, right? Like if I was doing a black box improv theater, that's going to be a totally different crowd than if I'm doing a corporate comedy club versus if I'm doing a bar show. And like all of them have their own little eccentricities and a little bit of difference especially when you're trying to get your message out there. And the one thing I don't think you noticed is that I didn't say that I post anything on Facebook, because I have to have one to have an Instagram. And there are many impersonators of me on Facebook, and I have not tried to stop any of them because they do a much better job promoting my stand-up than I do.
That's amazing. I have some impersonators on TikTok, but maybe I should just roll with that. This is for me, TikTok is just the enigma where it's like, sorry, you said grapes. And I'm like, what? Like, oh, sorry, it's like you are white after Labor Day. Like, I don't know the rules. And now apparently they're hiring like a former IDF spokesperson to do their content moderation. I'm like, well, I'm cooked.
Well, that's actually the least worrisome thing that they're doing right now, because they are clearly under the thumb 100% of the Trump administration as well. So I had a bunch of videos and a bunch of people I know who spoke about Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, things about the files, any of those different things. All of us got content strikes for it.
Dang.
And it was videos that were up for months.
Dang.
So it's sudden, like somebody came in and they just hit Control F Epstein, and they just went strike down the list. And so I've been starting to speak in code about him, saying the Island Man. I mean, you're out in LA, you know about all of the protests that have been happening. People have been talking about that now as the LA Music Festival, because even though the protests have been going on for over a month now, they were algorithmically suppressed. So people have noticed that these different suppressions, we saw it happen after October 7th.
That's fucking insane, because I've been like, wait a minute, I want to get invited to the LA Music Festival. I was like very confused. This is my like skibbity toilet moment, but I'm very, it is wild to me. We all are like, I hate fascism and authoritarianism. It's not going to get me and blah, blah, blah. And yet we're changing our behavior to get around and to accommodate massive authoritarian censorship. And this is like my thing of like, I'm going to go on the platform where I can be the laziest. I can be like the most me and the least censored. But again, if you say abortion here on YouTube, I mean, there you go. I probably just got demonetized.
You probably did.
Yeah,
I mean, that's why you have to call it the kids use unalive for everything.
But unalive.
Unalive, and it's called algo speak. They call it algo speak, so that we don't get suppressed by the algorithm is like a big part of it. So there'll be different things. So people say SA, all those different things. It's weird when the algo speak for a specific place like TikTok then carries over to other places, or to like a professional email, like, oh, my workload this week is going to unalive me. It's like, no, this is just an email. You can write, you can say kill. But even on that, but that's the thing is they also are constantly across all these platforms, though, they're constantly turning on and off the thing. So you never know.
Sure.
And then none of us have a key over what the code is, because if we explain the code too well, then they know, and then they'll block the code. Right. So another one is porn is corn. You know that one?
Yeah. So no.
Like, oh yeah.
But sure.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a big one is across all these platforms, they don't want you to talk about pornography in any sort of way, or OnlyFans, or any of these different types of things. So people will say, I'm a corn actress, or this person did a lot of corn, or things like that. And so there's now, when the whole Midwest and upper Northeast got hit by the corn sweat, which is when corn literally releases all of this this atmosphere, like water in the atmosphere and moisture, and it raises.
What did you call it? Corn what?
Corn sweat. It's when corn, the actual plant, releases moisture and they sweat, and it goes in the atmosphere, and it raises the humidity, so it makes the area warmer. When I heard that, my brain auto translated it to corn sweat, because I'm already doing math that I don't need to do, because I'm like, okay, this is calculus. Like, no, it's just basic math.
Wait. 1984 really just has nothing on 2025. Like, it completely like, I just am like, what happened to Pig Latin? You know what I mean? What happened to a simple Pig Latin? Ild K, Enocide J. Can we do this? Anyway, I guess it's not cool. This kind of dovetails into what I am not bitching about, but let's get into what we are bitching about. I'm not really bitching about this, Alex, but I am just sort of like commenting on the discourse around it. So Marc Maron, obviously the host of the WTF podcast, one of the longest running, most successful interview podcasts, kind of like podcast, kind of the last place where that's all this censorship for now doesn't really apply, including copyright stuff, but TBD. Anyway, he is winding down the show, and he's released his special on HBO, and he's got some like awesome bits that really skewer his own colleagues, our colleagues, people in stand-up who are fascists, who are, you know, running cover for fascists, who've run cover for Trump and all this, you know, your Tony Hinchcliffes, your Joe Rogans, your everybody, your, you know, Andrew Schultz's and all that. So this is a little snippet from that special.
You know, people in my business who were single issue Republican voters, and their issue was you know, twofold. I mean, they were anti-woke, you know, against any policy or language that could help the vulnerable get a leg up, and God knows that makes sense. So, but they also were very worried about their free speech. They didn't want their free speech to be infringed upon, which it never was. I mean, they'd say things and there'd be cultural pushback, and they were like, that shouldn't be allowed. Ultimately, all they really wanted was to be able to say the R word with impunity. That was why they voted. But along with that, you know, comes the collapse of the federal government, the destabilization of the global economy, tens of thousands of people being deported to places they might not have even come from, the actual suppression of speech and rights of LGBTQ people and women, and the rise of authoritarianism. And sometimes I feel like asking them, was it worth it, you fucking retard?
Okay, so that's sort of a taste of it. And he goes on, you know, he's making the podcast rounds, and he's just like, look, like being anti-trans is hack at this point. Yeah. And he also, I think, goes beyond that to criticize what stand-up has become, which is often just a bunch of crowd work that's put up on social media in order to get, you know, 1 million views and 1 million likes and whatnot. And people sadly, bookers book off of how many followers you have and all this, when a lot of that is all made up. And we can put that over here because I think that's also a good critique. But the other discussion I was seeing, which has been taking place on Threads, which is where a lot of stand-ups like to go. And I just realized this, Alex, but I'm like, oh, all of my stand-up friends are all talking about this on Threads.
Yeah, that's where I talk about. That's my primary for short form. So for short form microblogging social media, Threads is where it's at.
Threads of all the places. First of all, I find Threads like very Zionist, but also very like why am I going to, I need to Zuckerberg myself. Yeah. I need to like uncouple. I'm not going to start, I'm going in on Blue Sky, even though I have like 50,000, you know, and the people are like, well, no, I don't get a lot of likes, or like, I don't give a shit about likes, you know, anyway, but yes, comedians are talking about Marc Maron's special and him making the rounds and basically calling out some of his colleagues for their, you know, reactionary and corny and hack takes. And people are also pointing out that especially around 2017 to 2020, when the Me Too movement was happening and so many comics were revealed to be, you know, predators and, you know, and etc., that like this has been happening, like that women have been bringing this up for a long time, specifically female comics, and haven't really gotten the credit. And just to put this out here, this is a great video from Jen Kirkman, one of the people who spoke a lot about this, and she put this out in 2020, basically making fun of Adam Carolla.
Everybody doing tonight? I just want to let everyone know this might offend everyone. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck about how I make you guys feel. You're all too sensitive. And after this set, I will be on Twitter immediately refreshing and checking to see what people say about me, because I'm not as sensitive as you guys. And when I see what you guys say about me, I'm going to get really upset that you're so sensitive about what I said, which is not sensitive of me to do. I'm just monitoring everyone's opinion of me because I don't give a fuck. Anyway, you see these
I'm sorry. That is so brilliant up until that point.
Yeah.
So you could say this about, I mean, a handful. Dave Chappelle comes to mind. Like, these are people who just like, they write entire hours just on people who mean commented them.
Chappelle is the one that drives me the craziest, because I keep thinking back to the special that brought him back, the Netflix special, right?
Right.
He had one joke. It's like 1 2-minute joke about meeting a trans woman. And everyone loved the special, but they're like, hey, you know, I think I saw 3 tweets. I think in total it was 3 tweets in one article that was like, hey, yeah, great special. 58 minutes of it was awesome. That one joke though, man. I mean, maybe you're just, you know, I know you've been gone for a bit. Just so you know, like that one joke, I wouldn't lean on that. And he was like, fuck you. That's going to be my whole thing. And that is partially, that is also a comic thing. I mean, I talk about it a lot. The hardest part for me on social media is, and I've run into this with a lot of stand-up friends, and you've probably had this too. You could have a video go viral. It gets 50,000 likes. You go into the comments. It's got 6,000 comments. They're like, oh my God, not only are you funny, but you have good skin today and your hair looks great. And you're a good parent. And we love you so much. And your spouse is wonderful. And everything, you've never said anything wrong in your entire life. And then there's one person, one comment will be like, I don't know, the middle was kind of shit. And you'll spend days. You'll spend days walking around. Oh, the middle was bad? Oh, would have been better if I changed. And that is what Chappelle did. For basically going on almost a decade now, is he has latched on to one tiny piece of criticism. Literally, I cannot stress how everyone in the world praised Dave Chappelle. Everyone praised all these other different people. Going back to what Jen was saying about, and you yourself were saying about the Me Too movement and all those different things. I remember when Louis C.K., when everything came out about him, people were like, Louis C.K.'s canceled. I'm like, well, he's still a millionaire. What does that mean? And they're like, what? And I'm like, he doesn't need to, like, once you get a certain amount of money, you're not going to work at a gas station. Like, I just don't, I think back to all these different
clubs. I mean, this, I guess
like there was
just
minute,
putting this,
that minute where it wasn't, but like, there's many of these things where like cancel culture isn't real. Everything that they're talking about isn't it, for the most part, is a perception in their head and a fear that they created that they'd be called out for being shitbags.
Yes. And also called out for having bad material. And so Maron's been on this tear. And I do think it is important to say, and it would be tight if he was like, you know, Jen Kirkman said this, or Alice Wetterland said that, and like other comics who've like really openly called out other predators in their midst. You know, Alice Wetterland calling out TJ Miller, who she worked with on Silicon Valley. But we are also in 2025. We're not in 2018. We're literally living in the backlash of the Me Too movement, which, I mean, to be frank, largely failed when it comes to getting real change. I mean, cancel culture in and of itself is simply it is a symptom of no real justice. Is the all you can do is kind of say some shit online and be like, hope a booker doesn't want to book a predator anymore. You know, because chances are, you know, this is not going to go anywhere, and chances are they still will get booked. So it's like, so I think it's important to know that Marc is sticking his neck out when he's like talking about all these other comics, these hack comics, you know, even people like Matt Rife and shit like this. But I push back on people who are like, I don't know, all these women have said it before. Yes, but to me, the fact that Maron is speaking out about, you know, the reactionary comics, the hack comics, it shows that actually kind of everything for me is like Palestine related. It's like that there's safety in numbers, and specifically there's safety when people who are very famous, who have massive platforms, say something and speak out. So if anything, to me, I'm like, Marc, this is great. I wish you would have said it earlier. And let's get like, that should embolden more people to stick up for their fellow comics, and also to push back and be like, yeah, man, this shit is corny. None of this is counterculture. None of this is cool. You saying the R word, or, you know, whatever. Like, you know, I was going back to, you know, Tony Hinchcliffe just being like openly openly racist, in the middle of like the COVID pandemic, introducing an Asian American comic, or like responding to him, just the grossest. And this dude is like a show on Netflix. Again, cancel culture, not really real, not really effective. But anyway, the point is like, I'm like, we should celebrate Marc, and we should call in anyone else with as big of a platform as that to do the same, and to call out, because like Marc Maron goes, he works in the Comedy Store with like Whitney fucking homeless people are lighting LA on fire Cummings. Like that's who he works with.
Well, it's also one of those things where, as you were talking about, a thing I've been thinking about for a while now, like the part of cancel culture that was real were the women that Louis C.K. chased out of the industry. How many women were chased out forever by these predators? How many people have been, I know POC creators and comics who worked with guys who are now very famous, who, you know, they were left in the dust. They were pickpocketed by these guys, or they were used and then, you know, discarded. How many sidekicks does a podcast really need? You know, like how many token sidekicks does every couch need to have on there so that way they can drop these slurs? But I mean, like this is a big part of like with like all these in this industry. And I mean, the one thing I will say is that Maron has said this repeatedly, but he's been saying it in his bubble, which is WTF. And the reason why he's going on all these podcasts is because he's promoting a comedy special. And that's the reason you need to have something to promote to want to go on these things, unless you're just like generally a psycho or actually these guys' friends. I mean, one of the reasons why I reached out to you is because I'm promoting my comedy special, Daddy's Day, which you can find right on YouTube at youtube.com/Pearlmania500. It's a special I recorded back in December 14th, 2025 that I did with my buddy Doogie Horner. And it's a really great time. And you guys should go check it out. It's 22 minutes. I just talk mostly about the birth of my kid and screaming about JoJo Siwa and a bunch of other fun stuff. But
everyone needs to scream about JoJo Siwa.
Everyone does. I have a joke in there that's actually like weirdly like the Curse of Apollo, where I talk about like we lived through an insurrection. What was it? An insurrection, inflation, and JoJo Siwa's rebrand, and now we're gonna live through it all again. And then we're now inflation's through the roof. We're doing 2020. Masked men in the street grabbing people all over again, and now here's JoJo Siwa, and she's like, I'm a trad wife now. You're like, great. But going back to the Maron thing, I think it's important. It is important. I've tried to be, I used to, in the Philly comedy scene, I was the angry old man sitting in the back at the bar screaming at people that were hacks. Eventually, over time, I chased so many people out. I chased so many shitball guys. And whenever I go back to perform in Philly still, like I just did a show at a burlesque show and a few friends came out and they're like, man, we needed to come back to the mics. I said, why? They're like, the people are doing crowd work at open mics. I said, they're doing crowd because it's a bad crowd.
Oh
like,
my
no,
God, a crowd work.
And I'm like, I would I remember one guy got up, a prop comic got up one time, and I spent 25 minutes after his set explaining to him that there's a sketch comedy workshop down the road. You go over there for that shit, where this is where sad men and sad women get up and they talk about how they're unfuckable. And you're out here putting on wigs. And it's fine. There's a place for it. You can do all sorts of different stuff. But what you're trying to do right now, or just like catch a street joke when it happens, like a guy who gets a street joke book guy, or somebody who's clearly pickpocketing a tell, or, you know, anyone who's cloning the famous comedians that are going right now who are very popular. Just walking up and be like, why don't you have an original thought in your head? Because these guys now, especially as you were talking about with the algorithm is what's driving us. Have you heard this thing about the reason why all coffee shops look like that? With like the metal stools and they have the chalkboard. It's because of Instagram. It's because Instagram has told people that that's our signifier of that's what a coffee shop
means coffee shop. Yeah.
This means coffee shop. So if anyone is walking down the street and they go, what is this place? Oh, it's a coffee shop. You can see it's set up in this very specific way.
So the same thing's happening to stand up, you're saying?
100%. Same thing's happening. They saw guys like Stavros do well doing that type of stuff. They saw Matt Rife do well, and people have slowly started to think, oh, that's what this is, and that's what it's become. I mean, I almost quit stand-up in 2014 back then because smartphones came in, and I watched the audience change. I missed my favorite. I've been thinking about this a lot. My absolute favorite. I think the audience reaction peaked for just strangers for an open mic or just being in a room full of people and not knowing who's getting up on stage. Probably like 2007. I think that was about when the peak was, because after that, smartphones came in and suddenly you weren't competing against the other comics in the room. You were competing against this little box.
Oh,
Any pleasure in the world.
Oh, for open mics. Yeah, fuck it. But I do think that now, and we got to move, but I do think there is something special. And I'm sure people who've gone to see stand up can relate. I mean, I know when I go to shows, I'm like, that I'm not on, which is rare, but when I'm not on them, I'm like, it's kind of nice to put away my phone for an hour, you know? It's beautiful.
I saw Eddie Izzard, and amazing. That's my favorite comic of all time. And it was so great to put my phone in my pocket. And then they have an intermission like in the middle of the show where they like for some reason take a break because it's a theater. And I got so mad because I pulled out my phone and I was like, oh no, the horrors. I'm remembering the horrors. Why did you do this to me? I'm an addict.
I mean, just lastly, like, I'm like, if you are famous and you listen to this show, number one, come on it. Number two, become a patron. Number three, help Marc out, give him some, pat him up a little bit with some backup here, because I do think, stand up is like, it's like, there is no HR. People are constantly afraid of falling out of favor.
The bravest cowards in the world.
Yes,
bravest cowards in the world.
The bravest cowards. I mean, there's something very chilling about the story of baby reindeer and someone putting themselves in that situation for an opportunity. Stand-up comics are the fucking cowards are the broken people who would do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like it gets dark in this, like, you know, in this world. And so just to say, like, stick your neck out, support one another. And when the culture shifts, because it already is against these reactionary right-wingers, hack jobs, we'll be there. Alex and I will be there. We got to move on to the week where so many things happened. 2 in my book. This is the week where. Okay, Alex, this is the week where. Don't you dance.
I was enjoying the song.
Sure. Trump is invoking the Home Rule Act in D.C., taking over the police and deploying the National Guard to, in his words, get rid of bedlam and squalor.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening, and they've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly.
Okay, so there's a number of things to know about this. First of all, bedlam, squalor. Like, what year are we? What is this?
Yeah, he's talking like a Batman villain.
Seriously.
That's Batman. There's bedlam and squalor here.
Squalor. Riffraff.
I saw the other day a diddler on the roof. It was crazy. It's a wild time.
There was. And okay, there's a number of things that are sort of coalescing here. First of all, the Home Rule Act does not apply to other cities, only DC. Oh my God, it should be its own state. I am so sorry. But as you know, coming from an Angelino where people have been disappeared off the streets, welcome to our nightmare and our hell. A student was literally detained by ICE. A child was just detained by ICE. But anyway, and the National Guard was here for our, music festival. But so it can only apply to DC. He is invoking it. And the question is why? And it kind of gets to all of these fascinations that Trump has had ever since he's been in the public eye or, been around, specifically around like teens and teen minorities doing crime, or what we assume are minorities, because specifically it comes after A1 Big Balls. The former Doge employee, his name is some bullshit, Edward Coriston. So Big Balls apparently got carjacked, or was an attempted carjacking in DC. You see him there kind of like bloodied. I don't know the details.
There's a part that's missing that from all these stories. It was 3 a.m. Yeah. He's a 19-year-old kid out in DC at 3 a.m. I'm not excusing.
I mean, what was he wearing?
Yeah, I know. But I mean, just in general, and he got attacked in DuPont Circle. I just did a show in DuPont Circle. It was fine. I was out till 2 a.m. It was fine. It was just a city. Stuff happens. And that's people point, oh, look at all the blood. If you get punched in the nose, that's how much blood comes out of you. He might have got hit once by a 14-year-old. This is crazy. If I was a 19-year-old guy who got punched in the face by a 14-year-old, I would not want the president of the United States telling everybody I have a glass.
Okay, well, what about 10 14-year-olds?
Oh, sure.
And
sure.
here's Trump.
Yeah, and the fish was this big. Come on.
Well, there's a lot of the fish was this big
So much
surrounding this entire incident.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of reporting about this incident. Let's leave the big balls thing over here. But it was enough to give Trump this in of like, ooh, preteens doing crime. This is my thing. This is the Central Park Five all over again. And so, of course, he like truths the local youths and gang members, some only 14, 15, and 16, are randomly attacking, mugging, maiming, and shooting innocent citizens. All right, well, he wasn't shot. On and on and on. And so this seems to be like the impetus for calling in the National Guard and taking control of the DC police. But there's like a lot of other implications, right? So the question is like, what the hell are they going to be doing? Who are they going to be going after? And one of the biggest things, first of all, number one, this has been playing out in terms of fact checking, right? Crime in DC, specifically violent crime, is like at an all-time low.
Yeah.
It's down 26% this year alone. Trump wants to liberate DC. I mean, really, he's like, let's not have black people in DC. Like that's sort of the subtext here.
See, the thing is libs like you, liberals and leftists like you like to point at numbers. You know what I point at? I point out what Elon Musk shows me on Twitter. And right now, Elon Musk, Ian Miles Chong, Mark Zuckerberg, whoever owns Google, all of them, my feed has never been more violent in all my life. I mean, the other day I saw these guys. I mean, yeah, the video was grainy and it was in black and white, but they know that the president, the JFK, they took him out, and that Dallas, we need to send the troops into Dallas. I mean, I've been seeing clips from 2020 that are being replayed now, and they're like, this is happening right now, and they're being pushed by guys like Jack Posobiec. They're being pushed like the End Wokeness account, which is always Jack Posobiec. They're being pushed by all of these fucking people over and over and over again. And the thing is like,
they're just gonna throw in a the Kenosha.
Yeah. Exactly. No, exactly. They're
or the Minneapolis Police Department on fire for no reason. You're like, what?
They're grabbing all these different things. They're showing footage from in Philadelphia when like a cop car got flipped. I mean, I saw stuff that was like, look at these animals. I'm like, that's when Penn State won a bowl game. Like that's Penn State. Like, I mean, like I'm from Philadelphia. When we're happy, we riot. We do. When we get a trophy, when we win, go fucking Birds. Number one, EAGLES. We can spell sometimes, but our mayor can't. But that's when we rip down all the light posts. Like
the Philly fanatic really like haunts me to this day. I'm like, what isn't that thing? Like
exactly. He's everything and nothing at the same time, and Gritty is his shadow.
I know. Gritty. I'm like Gritty. Yeah, he ran so Gritty could walk or something like that.
I don't want to get too far away from this, but the story of Gritty is when they unveiled Gritty, everybody hated him, and then the Pittsburgh Penguin was like, "That your mascot's lame," and we went, "Fuck you, that's our best friend." Like that's how I feel. That's also how I'm feeling though about city to city. Like I went to LA when I was 16. I wasn't a fan of it. I'm an East Coast guy. I got out there. I didn't like the sprawl. I didn't like the way it was set up. The people I met seemed kind of fake. But the second Donald Trump was like, and fuck LA, we're going to send in the troops, I immediately put on I love LA. I bought a Dodgers hat.
Yeah.
I just started.
Well, that's a bridge too far, but
yeah, I just went, I did everything.
And I'm coming from San Francisco. I'm living in LA. I don't even like LA that much, but now I do. I mean, you're absolutely right.
But it's that same thing is going to happen. I mean, I don't like the Yankees or the Mets, but if he goes after Zoran, then I'm going to be right there screaming along. I'll put on a Mets. I'm a Phillies fan. I'll put on a Mets hat. I don't care. We need to have solidarity between our cities. And that's how we need to see now.
Well, DC has a natural built-in solidarity because of how much it gets robbed of representation because it is not a state. And so it's like it's another rationale for DC statehood. But, Mother Jones did some, great reporting, and this is just rolling out now. So we're going to have stories, we're going to have videos, we're going to see ICE agents and, National Guard specifically interacting with people. But this is according to the Mother Jones. We already have a preview of what the escalation will bring to DC. On Sunday night, the FBI started to scatter across the city, according to NPR. At one intersection, a minor traffic accident between a car and a moped brought at least 24 agents running, some wearing masks and one carrying a rifle. Local DC Metropolitan Police were also on the scene. And again, it shouldn't be lost on anyone that this act was not invoked on January 6th. I mean, this is, the kind of lawlessness in DC. I mean, I don't think we should ever stop talking about January 6th. I'm like, does it sound too run-of-the-mill lib? It's like, no, man. No, because Merrick Garland did fuck all about it. So we can keep on talking about it forever and ever and ever. Yeah. And someone who was there on the day saying people should kill cops is currently in the administration. So
yeah, no, I mean, it's January 6th to me. And I think for a lot of people going into 2024, there was a certain subsect, especially of centrist libs, who were like, well, no one would vote for him because of January 6th, and not knowing, again, going back to the algorithms, how much algorithmic washing has been done. I mean, and I keep looking back when people are like, oh, this is one of the militarization of DC is one of the flashing signs of fascism. I'm like, yeah, it's not the flashing sign. It is the fascism, number one. But number two, the flashing sign was January 6th. That was the warning. And then the appetizer is what's been happening in LA. And LA was proof. LA was the signal to all of the governors, some of which understand and some of which don't, that he can touch anywhere in this country. And he can do this anywhere in the country. During the campaign, when Donald Trump was talking about, he was focused on a couple different things. Everyone remembers eating the dogs, eating the cats, but they also forget how he kept bringing up, I think it was somewhere in Aurora, Colorado, or somewhere in Colorado, where he was like, the Venezuelans have taken over apartment complexes, folks. That was him signaling. Colorado is probably next to Massachusetts is one of our bluest states. It's one of the most lib state. And that was a signal to them and to everyone, which is when I get in power, I'm going to take all of law enforcement away from worrying about crimes from landlords and worrying about crimes from crypto moguls and worrying about crimes from people who are importing these other different things and maybe cheating on their taxes. And I'm going to put them in blue cities and I'm going to aim them at brown people and I'm going to have them be busy, busy, busy. One of the things a couple years ago, I did a thing where I met some Secret Service agents because I was at an event that the president was at.
Sure, as you do.
And I was there and I started yapping with the Secret Service agents and because it was in Philly. And I was like, so you're here in Philly. So you guys aren't always protecting them here. And they're like, yeah, no, we're local to Philly. I'm like, well, what do you do? They're like, well, I'm typically dealing with like internet crimes because that's a big part of the Secret Service. And he started explaining to me of every time Joe Biden visited Philadelphia, how many crimes he couldn't deal with. And he had to put on pause for 24 to 48 hours so Joe Biden could and do this thing. But I mean, just think about that.
It's a golden age of crime because of all the distraction. And all the National Guard are saying that.
Yeah, and the time you're dealing with it is the greatest time now for the supervillains of the world to be able to do super crime.
Yes. What happened this week is insane because last week we had former Border Patrol agent Jen Budd, who's now an advocate, say that basically that, immigration authorities are, they are the brown shirts, they are the thugs, they're the ones they're the Gestapo, effectively. They're turning this country into the authoritarianism that we're seeing. And they have done that on the border for decades. And now it's coming home to, everywhere. And she was like, and homeless people are next. And it was like, okay. And now we're seeing that actually when it comes to DC, there are undocumented immigrants in DC for sure. They will be swept up. There are, 14, 15, 16-year-old, kids of color who likely will be stopped and frisked by these National Guard. But also there are unhoused people who live in DC. And of course, so many right-wingers are seeing this as an opportunity to quote unquote, clean them up. And here is Laura Ingraham speaking with Pete Hegseth, who very openly is like, I don't know what's going to happen with them, but here's the Karenicity that is now coming out because of this.
And the National Guard going to be picking up these tents. So the homeless tents are all over the city. They're on K Street Tunnel. There are some dotting along the area here. There were more before. Some of them have been cleared out. What about those?
We're working with the marshals and alongside them, alongside Park Police, alongside everybody else. Wherever they need the National Guard to assist, we're happy to be there.
Do you know where the homeless people are going to go?
That's not really my lane. Yeah. Our job is to stand alongside law enforcement. We'll do that.
No, your lane is the DOD's lane is not to be operating inside the United States as a military force and as a police force. That's the lane. Yep. That's the reason why he doesn't have an answer to that, because posse comitatus states that our standing army isn't supposed to be with. I heard, of all the people who said, Trixie Mattel, one of my favorite drag queens, Trixie Mattel said, we are a conquering nation that is conquering ourselves. And that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
And I actually have been trying to work on a video and trying to explain about how this is Wag the Dog. Do you remember that movie? Remember the movie Wag the Dog? A lot of people forget about it because it was a kind of forgettable 1997 movie with Robert De Niro and
it's like, what if CG? And you're like, wow.
Yeah. What if they fake the war to distract from a sex scandal? Well, what if we don't? And that was supposed to be a foreign war. They did it in some place that was like Kosovo or Serbia or one of those type of feelings for it. And we went through this with Iraq and all the other different things. The idea is the tail wags the dog. That's what the statement is. And the thing is we keep barely touching on this the entire time through this whole conversation, which is, yes, Donald Trump is obsessed with these 14 and 15-year-old kids. And now I have a chart with about his connections to the Jeffrey Epstein trial. And when there's but I mean, like, that's like nobody's fucking noticing that. It's driving me insane. This is part of what's been really driving me nuts. And tying this back a little bit to the conversation about Maron and the podcast bros. I want my fucking crazies back. We used to, the Democratic Party, the libs, the leftists, we used to have a pack of fucking lunatics who would show up and they'd be like, nah, no fluoride, man. Nah, they did this stuff with the planes. What's that in the sky? And we'd be like, listen, come on, bud. We shall be vegan. Okay, great. RFK showed up like the broken-throated Pied Piper, and he sang a tune, and all of our crazies are gone. And they were the ones who would right now.
Well, they've been swallowed by they're in power.
Yeah, but they've been absorbed. And I want them back because they were the ones who were constantly always screaming at everybody that we couldn't do this shit because we'd end up in this exact moment. And a lot of them have been absorbed, but a bunch of them now are just disassociating.
But they realize that too. That's why, like, Bongino's like, oh God, like, I mean, they're the car that, the dog that caught up with the car, not the car that caught up with the dog.
I don't know. I think Bongino's worried that when this is over, he won't be able to get brand deals again. That's what this really comes down to.
That's exactly right. Which is so funny that you're like, what happened to my brand deals? Where I openly say, it's like, I mean, the Epstein stuff is real, but he was like, when where I blame Islam for everything.
Yeah.
But
he's to get back to his Black Rifle Coffee Company deals. I mean, that's where he's trying. I mean, remember he took an extra month to join the administration because he had to finish up ad reads. He's like, I have contractual ad reads before I can become the deputy director of the FBI. Like, we live in a parody.
Speaking of contractual ad reads, so we can get a job in the FBI. I was so eager to move to. I'm going to take you out, Alex, because this shan't be interrupted. It is important to know that it is a birthday. Yes, it is a birthday of one Sunset Lake CBD, people, which sponsors this show so that I can eventually work for the deep state. And you get 25% off all of the products, sunsetlakecbd.com. Again, based in Vermont, craft CBD, vertically integrated, regeneratively farmed, donates to awesome causes, supports this podcast. I specifically love the Goodnight gummies that don't have melatonin, but they do have some that do have melatonin. It really helps me with I wake up at 3 a.m. and can't sleep. And so I bite a little bit and takes me to 7 a.m. Unless the baby wakes me up earlier. And you get 25% off your entire order with code BIRTHDAY. You also get a free gift over $100. And they're going to celebrate their birthday all month long. So sunsetlakecbd.com, coupon code BIRTHDAY, and a free gift. And the sale ends, not all month. It ends midnight on August 17th. It's seriously the best time to try smokables, gummies, tinctures, salves for your aching muscles. sunsetlakecbd.com. Thank you so much. And now may I have my position within the federal government.
Yeah, you need to be a Fed now.
Now I got to be a Fed. We have one more story, Alex. We got to get to this because we have I'm excited to bring in Jasper in a little bit, but
good good product integration. Amazing product integration on
that. You did, you set it up and then I knocked it down.
Did well.
Paige reminded me that I blew right past it. Okay, so this news has been simmering and I haven't really discussed it, but yes, Congress has effectively defunded PBS, NPR, and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. $1.1 billion is now going to be clawed back. It was already allocated. They clawed it back. That is the equivalent of $1.60 per American, which, by the way, for just for context and comparison, countries like Germany, and other countries will spend something like $10 per citizen on their public media, on the arts, on things that like support, education and growth and learning and blah, blah, blah. Basically, this was the last bastion. And on top of that, PBS has gotten money from like, the Gates Foundation and the Koch brothers. I mean, they are not a corporate free entity because it's huge. We're talking local radio in 50 states, a lot of places where people get their first like port of call. I just want to like, this is happening. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting says they will effectively shut down. I think there will still be an NPR and a PBS, but in a much more, we're going to see like what shape that takes. But just, Alex, I feel like it is a moment before I get to the funny part of this, because it kind of is funny, to recognize that like when we do take our country back, when we do, when we do democratic socialism, as I would hope, and what actually many other countries have done after they've wrested control from coups and military dictatorships, is they reform the media in a way that is very pro-democratic, that has much more space for public programming, for publicly owned airwaves, for people to get, their message across, for local news and media. And so we've seen the media and PBS and NPR be sidelined for decades. I mean, this is something that the right has wanted to do for so long because, I don't know, Bert and Ernie might be closeted gay or openly gay, you know what I mean? Or like someone's trans or whatever the hell the reason they could invent. But that part of our broader vision, because everything is pain now, but part of our broader vision for like a new United States really does involve expanding public media and beyond NPR, PBS. It's breaking up corporate media and it is putting it back into the hands of the people. That's just where I'm at. But please, before I move on,
can I tell you something? I love, this is the first, I've done a bunch of podcasts, and this is the first ones where somebody has actually articulated any vision past this government. I just want to thank you right now for now being the #1 podcast, show, streaming channel, anything, to actually just say like, when we take power back. And I was like, oh, that's an option.
yeah, exactly. Oh,
everyone else is just like, all right, well, this is how, okay, so first thing, you get yourself 30 pounds of rice and some dry beans, and make sure you have 4 gallons of water in your basement. Also, maybe at least one of them fire starter logs, because that's how we're all going to eat. I got me a big dog, and we keep him fat. I
don't know what that means, but I like it.
And he's future eating. That's what he is.
I thought he was your guard dog.
Oh no, he's not. He's not good at garden. He likes to sniff people and give them face licks. But I look at him and I go, that's a good haunch on the side there when we get desperate. But no, I mean, one thing I've been thinking a lot about, because the right does this a lot, what they do effectively, and it's an issue that we have heavily, especially in this country. Things like PBS and NPR, the right labels as left, but officially it's labeled as center, and then the left has to defend the center, and the right builds a parallel economy. I just found out about, I don't know if you've ever heard about this, Trail Life USA and Heritage. It's Heritage Girls. You heard of them?
Oh no,
American Heritage Girls. They are a parallel to the Boy and Girl Scouts of America. And I know you're like, oh, they must be small. No, they have almost 200,000 members across all 50 states, thousands
and it's like,
of troops, and they're tied
we don't cancel pedophiles.
Well, no. In their mind, they were formed back in the 90s because the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts of America were allowing gay people in. And now they're very openly transphobic. You have to be, only biological women can be in the American Heritage Girls, and only biological boys can be in Trail Life USA. And they're pushing a monogamy, and they're pushing straight and blah, blah, blah. And all this is for dads and parents and all these different types of things. But it's a parallel. It's a parallel. So before, you'd have the right and the left, they'd meet at Cub Scouts, or they'd meet at Girl Scouts, and we'd have the cookies or whatever. And you had these different things. They built a parallel structure,
we all meet at the cookies,
and then made us defend what we think is the center, which means that we don't build a left at all.
Even though, the religious overtones of Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts is long. I mean, it's
100%. It's 110-year-old. Yeah, it's 110-year-old organization that now which I found out this through reading Trail Life USA's website last night, is because they're thinking about doing a future episode of our podcast, Too Many Tabs, which you can find at youtube.com/ProMania500, which is a podcast where my wife and I find a topic and we do a deep dive, right? We do a very, very big deep dive on an issue. And I was like, maybe this will be one of those. Just like PBS, though, they'll build an entire parallel universe, homeschool, all these different types of things. And then we have to sit there and defend the actual institution, which is the baseline of liberalism. The baseline of liberalism is the idea that that the institutions are the way forward. And so we want to defend that institution. But meanwhile, the whole world around it has changed. Yeah. And the right, they can react quickly because they're reactionaries, but also because they don't have to worry about coming back to a charter or any of these different things like the way PBS and NPR have.
Sure. Well, I mean, and speaking of parallel structures, because I have to move on, but PragerU, owned by this man, Dennis Prager, here looking so fuckable. PragerU has been building this parallel educational structure when it comes to PBS and NPR, specifically targeting children. And they have, God, they used to come after me when I mentioned their names doing News Broke, like a tiny little channel. They are so super sensitive, but they've partnered with different departments of ed in states like Oklahoma, and let's see, Louisiana, Florida, New Hampshire, Montana, Arizona, South Carolina, Idaho. And this is the kind of content they're putting out. Here is Christopher Columbus explaining why slavery, not that bad.
Slavery is as old as time and has taken place in every corner of the world, even amongst the people I just left. Being taken as a slave is better than being killed, no? Before you judge, you must ask yourself, what did the culture and society of the time treat as no big deal?
The worst part is I know too much about Christopher Columbus, because Christopher Columbus was actually so terrible that the Spanish Empire imprisoned him because he was so cruel to the people. And they were also like, hey, why do you keep transporting 14-year-old girls from island to island, you weird sick fuck? And then he was like, no, it's called Lolita
Original
Express.
Island Man.
Yeah, the original Island Man. And then that's why Donald Trump loves him so much. Hey-o.
That's what we needed. Wait, okay, so then there's this, because maybe people have seen that, but so PragerU has partnered with the government specifically. I mean, whatever is left of the Department of Ed, nothing.
Run by Linda McMahon from the WWE. Don't forget Vince McMahon's wife, Linda McMahon.
Will not forget. And this is what they're doing, like this kind of AI slop. Founding fathers. This is John Adams coming to life.
I am John Adams, blunt, stubborn, and the indispensable voice for independence in the Continental Congress. He called me obnoxious and disliked. I call it telling the truth. Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes or inclinations, they cannot alter the state of facts. In other words, friend, facts do not care about our feelings.
Yes, John Adams just quoted Ben Shapiro back in.
I don't want to get you demonetized, so I'm not going to tell you my full thoughts on that. But you referenced earlier a video I made, or maybe it was before we even recorded, I recently made about AI and about YouTube Kids slop and all these different things. And in one of the comments I saw was actually a teacher who was telling me that they are now using AI inside of their lesson plans so the kids can feel like they're talking to historical figures like Frederick Douglass, like Harriet Tubman, like John Adams and others. And the thing is, my question, the same way we've seen with Grok, aka Mecha Hitler. It's that personality is based on the designer. It's not based on, we like to pretend that they are just, we're going to dump this information in, and then what comes out is a real life simulacrum of this. But it's not. It's going to be decided the same way The same way we know that Passion of the Christ was written by a virulent anti-Semite. The same way that we've seen A Birth of a Nation convince people that the KKK were actually the good guys after the Civil War. It depends on who is doing the editing of the program is what's going to be put in the underlying part of that, which is how you end up with this situation. That was John Adams?
Yeah, I mean, allegedly.
John fucking Adams saying facts don't care about your feelings?
No,
like, it's just fucking. I
mean, and the best part about all this is that, like,
that's where I'm married right now. I'm sorry.
Let it be noted that Alex has put a fake gun, a finger gun in his mouth.
Yes.
That's where I'm at. It's very funny. It's scary. Urberry on Twitch says YouTube constantly promotes PragerU videos, including on bituation content. Yeah, they've won. I mean, clearly, PragerU crushing it. Franny doesn't have the government contracts.
Do you know what they hired years ago for PragerU? Dennis Prager worked with. He worked with the South Park guys. The South Park guys' first job when they came to Hollywood was working with Dennis Prager, and they hated him so much that is who Officer Bar Brady is based on. Officer Bar Brady is based on Dennis Prager.
That's amazing. Is that the guy? I'm so bad at South Park, but like, is that the guy with the double chin?
Yeah, he's like, he's the cop. He's the cop with the double chin and the glasses. He's that is Dennis Prager. Yeah.
Prager is a disgusting human being. I mean, this guy is like, the kinds of things he says. Anyway, very exciting. Also, they can't control the AI because it's too woke. Grok got barred from its own effing platform for saying the genocide is real.
Yeah.
Alex Pearlman, thank you so much for stopping by. Please tell people where they can watch your special and listen to your podcast.
Yeah, you can find me at youtube.com/Pearlmania500. My podcast is called Too Many Tabs, or you can find me anywhere on the internet under Pearlmania500, Instagram, TikTok, right here on YouTube, or wherever else. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Take care. Come back soon. So amazing. And now let me bring in writer, reporter, based in Brooklyn. He writes the newsletter everyone has to subscribe to from inside the West Bank. Please welcome Jasper Nathaniel. Jasper, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Francesca.
The Monastera is really a flex right now. That is...
Oh, I didn't even realize it was back there. Thanks for
this whole thing.
Oh, is there a bookshelf back there? Oh, funny.
I wrote half of these.
Yeah. No, they're not real books. They're just, the shelves.
Jasper, thank you so much for joining. It's been a really, I mean, it's been a grim week. And then when it comes to Israel, Palestine, and then I think back on like a year ago and all the things that we have already learned and known, and you just like the traumatized part of oneself kind of buries the things that, we forgot about, the stories and the horrors. But this week has been really rough when it comes to Gaza. We know that, I mean, before I get into what's been happening, I guess I just want you to introduce yourself. Please introduce yourself to the audience. Who are you? Why do you report on this?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm Jasper Nathaniel.
Hi, Jasper.
Thank you. My beat is mostly the West Bank, actually, which I have been reporting for a number of years. And I really started focusing on it after October 7th because it was just so clear to me that nobody was going to be paying attention to what was happening there. And at the same time, the settlers and the settlers who run the government in Israel were going to use that shadow cast over it as an opportunity to steal more land, kill more Palestinians. And so I just basically decided, okay, I'm going to just focus on this and shout from the rooftops and try to get people to pay attention. And to be frank, it's only been worse than I could have imagined. All of my grimmest predictions have come true and then some, and I'm very worried about what's happening in the West Bank, to say nothing of the genocide in Gaza. Had
you visited the West Bank, and you said you started reporting on this years ago, but had you visited before October 7th?
No, okay. I never had been before. And I'd never been to Israel either. I mean, I'm Jewish. I was raised Jewish, not in a Zionist household. And I became interested in, Palestine, anti-Zionism in college, like a lot of people. And then just gradually became more sort of invested in it and then started writing about it a couple of years ago.
That's awesome. And your writing is excellent. And I did want to ask you about what it's been like in the West Bank. Just this week, an Israeli settler who had been known to be violent and extremist and all of this actually murdered one of the filmmakers and activists who worked on No Other Land, which is that documentary that won the Oscar, Auda al-Hathalin. Anyway, and yeah, he's just the latest person to be murdered. Obviously, Saif Musalet kind of made headlines. He's the American Palestinian who was killed also by settlers or prevented from getting aid when he could have been saved for fucking hours, was not attended to after and succumbed to his injuries. These are just two examples, but can you tell me where you've been, what you've seen, and why you think it's getting worse?
Yeah. But before I forget, I just want to mention that Saif Musalat, his first cousin, his mother's sister's 15 or 16-year-old child is currently locked up in Israeli military detention. He's been since February on charges of throwing stones. He's contracted a severe case of scabies. He's lost at least 26 pounds. He's not been able to speak with his parents since February. And he has no trial date scheduled. So he's just sort of locked up indefinitely now. And the reason I bring that up is A, because it's just important we talk about these things, but B, because like that story of this is an American kid, a Palestinian American. If a story like that is not covered by the media, just imagine how much is happening in the West Bank that we have no idea about. To get to your question though, I mean, the first thing that I think people should just understand is that there was a fundamental change in the way the West Bank is governed that actually happened before October 7th. That happened in February of 2023 when Smotrich, who's the finance minister, and basically, I think as a lot of people know, him along with some other far-right members of the Knesset became unbelievably powerful because Netanyahu was relying on them to hold this governing coalition together.
Right.
So Smotrich, who is a true extremist in every sense of the word, he's been charged on support for terrorism. He was one of those kids that you see in videos running around the hills, throwing rocks, setting outposts. So he works out a deal with the defense minister, who at the time was Yoav Gallant. And what the deal did was he basically, Smotrich installed himself inside the Defense Department. And then he created a essentially shadow government to govern the West Bank, made up entirely of settlers. And the reason that's important is because the West Bank actually has legal standing as being under a military occupation.
Yeah.
The military occupation is brutal and it's cruel and it's sadistic, but in a strange way, the military's sort of agenda is not necessarily completely aligned with a lot of these extremist settlers who have their own ideological commitments around taking the land, as opposed to just necessarily brutalizing people and having control over everything. And in fact, there have been lots of times in the past when the settlers and the Israeli military, their agendas have clashed directly.
Interesting. And also kind of like tracks historically with how Zionism formed. But keep going.
Yeah.
Because I was always under the impression that the military sort of low-key supported and defended and protected settlers, but you're saying no, they've even been the targets.
Well, I don't want to overstate it. I mean, the military certainly always has the settlers back over the Palestinians. But just to give you like a concrete example, there's something called outposts. An outpost is basically when a group of settlers peels off from a settlement that is formally recognized by Israel, and they build something that has not been approved by Israel, meaning it has not gone through these sort of bureaucratic procedures to get approval for it. And they do that to steal land. They go and build outposts like right next to Palestinian villages. They take their farmland. They have their livestock graze on their land. There was a time when that causes enormous problems. Basically, I mean, it causes chaos. Mm-hmm. And the military doesn't want chaos. Right. Like they want to maintain order. And again, like they want to crack skulls, but I think it's honestly a pain in the ass for them to have to go deal with these snotty-nosed settler kids who are out there causing trouble all the time. And so now,
and the order, we should just say, is apartheid. The order is checkpoints. The order is already preventing people from getting life-saving medical care because ambulances have to go through checkpoints and all this. The order is already being treated like terrorists. So like, that's, the order is terrible. But yeah, the vigilantism, I think, is what you're talking about. Please continue.
Yeah, no, that's important, because again, like I don't want to imply that, you know, the military are out there as a benevolent force protecting the Palestinians against the settlers. Like, they're enforcing a brutal apartheid system. Smotrich, who again is a settler, he actually was not able to serve in the military because he was charged with supporting terrorism. So what he does is he builds this new chain of command, basically, inside the Defense Department. And what it does is it routes every decision away from the Defense Department's lawyers. And that's important because these lawyers, they are lawyers, they're bureaucrats. And again, like, who knows what their agendas are, but on some level, like, they're trying to at least ostensibly, nominally prove that they're following the law. And the law in this case, it's the Geneva Convention, it's Hague, and there's all sorts of laws around military occupation that basically have like created these bureaucratic hurdles for the settlers to be able to build wherever they want, demolish wherever they want. So Smotrich builds a new chain of command that allows every decision to just go right around the military lawyers and right around anybody that would get in the way of making decisions. And what they've done is they've given the settlers the ability to build wherever they want, to demolish wherever they want. They're no longer taking down outposts. They're not enforcing law against settlers. And so, you know, to the extent that there was some sort of like framework of rule there, it's essentially been dismantled by Smotrich. Wow. And so what that actually looks like is, I mean, we hear this term a lot, like the settlers are emboldened, but I mean, that is true in a very technical sense, because they like, yes, I think they're sort of spiritually emboldened. They recognize that, you know, they're getting away with whatever they want, but like quite literally, laws are not being enforced against them in a way that at one time they at least, you know, pretended to enforce laws against them, if nothing else. They just, all of the things that were in the way before are out of the way, and they're able to just run completely wild. In the case of the shooting recently of Auda Hathalin, that is a perfect example, actually, of how not only are the settlers emboldened, but quite literally they're doing their job. When they go and terrorize a Palestinian community, when they shoot somebody and kill them, when they chase people off their land, that is what they're there to do. And Yinon Levy, who's the notoriously violent settler who shot Auda, I was actually warned about him when I was in the South Hebron Hills. They showed me his picture, the people who I was traveling with, and they basically said, you know, all the settlers are dangerous, or all the hilltop settlers are dangerous, but if you see this guy, just go the other way, because he's psychotic. He's actually psychotic, and he carries a gun with him wherever he goes. People have known this about him for years. I think your audience probably knows that the Biden administration, in one of the only, I think, positive things they did for Palestinians was they sanctioned Yinon Levy and a handful of other settlers, which actually did, I think, put a chill on some of the extremist settlers. Trump comes in, he immediately lifts those sanctions. This past April, just a couple months ago, Smotrich was in the West Bank doing a ceremony at Yinon Levy's illegal outpost, handing out ATVs and military-grade gear, and calling them out the Jewish heroes, the pioneers, quite literally saying, you know, you are on the front lines of expanding the Jewish state. So Yinon Levy was given an ATV by Smotrich when he was already known to be exceptionally violent, after he shoots and kills Auda Hathalin 2 weeks ago or so. A number of Knesset members show up in court to support him, and they always use the same language. They call them the Jewish pioneers, because these people are, you know, pioneering new land in the West Bank. And literally the same day that he committed that shooting, Smotrich was back in the West Bank, giving away weapons, military-grade gear, ATVs, night vision goggles, drones. And so it's
funded
not
by
enough.
American taxpayers.
100%. So it's not enough to say, you know, the rules have been, the guardrails are off and they've been empowered. I mean, quite literally, they have been like promoted and given funds and given support and given weapons, and they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. The settlers are you know, expanding Israel to cover the occupied West Bank, and they have effectively annexed it at this point.
Right. Let's. I mean, and this is, you know, I think what's so important and critical about someone like yourself writing about this and visiting is that, you know, for 23 months now, we've been hearing, you know, if only Gaza didn't have Hamas, if only Gaza didn't have Hamas. And the line that I think we've all been saying, and I think it, you know, oh God, I think it bears repeating, but it's just like, yeah, Israel, I mean, Gaza without Hamas is the West Bank. Look at what's happening in the West Bank. And the political leadership in the West Bank has been neutered completely. And that's my next question about this is, and look at what's happening. Look at the colonialism, look at the ethnic cleansing, look at the terrorism that is constant. And these are people trying to live their lives, trying to go to work, trying to have a life. What is the political leadership been like in terms of the Palestinian Authority? Like, what's been the response? I mean, again, I'm not holding my breath, but I'm just curious about like sort of, you know, or does it feel like every day, you know, is just kind of like a struggle to live, and like the idea of thinking about like a political route out feels naive. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the Palestinian Authority, which is, you know, the Palestinian group that ostensibly governs parts of the West Bank, which is currently the Fatah party. Most people in the West Bank, most Palestinians call them Israel's subcontractor. They just do Israel's bidding, basically. And I have not met one Palestinian in the West Bank who thinks that the PA or Mahmoud Abbas, who currently is the leader, are going to help free them. I mean, if anything, they are just collaborating directly with Israel. In terms of like what the solution is, honestly, I don't even think about it anymore, which is sad. It's like, I mean, right now I'm concerned with these violent settlers who are going in and killing, you know, people that, friends of friends, basically. Like, fortunately, nobody that I directly know has been killed yet, but I have lots of friends there who knew Auda. I have friends in lots of different towns who, I mean, their children are being killed. Their people are being killed. In this town, Sebastia, where I've done a lot of reporting, I think last week, the military came in and officially seized 40% of their land to turn it into what is effectively a biblical Disneyland.
What?
And so there's just so much happening. I mean, I cannot emphasize enough that Smotrich is an incredibly effective legislator, frankly, and bureaucrat. And in a way that I think, like, I can't even think of a parallel in the US.
And this is someone who also is openly talked about like plans for a greater Israel. Obviously, that means full annexation of the West Bank. We know that Trump got however many millions of dollars from Miriam Adelson to effectively lobby for the annexation of the West Bank. You touched on something and that you just wrote about this week, but in terms of, was it a cousin of Saif Mossalet's, who is 15, being held in a military prison. And, you know, I think really, I think your piece highlighted the fact that we have been talking, or the mainstream news has been speaking about the hostages. And it truly, you cannot engage in an honest conversation about the hostages without either prizing one life over another, i.e. Israeli lives over Palestinian lives. If you're not actually going to talk about the hostages, the prisoners that Israel takes, and the conditions that they are in are absolutely wild. And so maybe you could just explain a little bit more about what you know, where they've been taken, how long they are held for. I mean, and we know that they regularly have imprisoned children, but can you just expand on that?
Yeah. So I think for the purposes of trying to make sense of the prison system in Israel. Like, Israel, of course, has lots of laws that they use to charge Palestinians with all sorts of things. Like, they're not hesitant to use their laws against Palestinians. In addition to that, they have a number of different systems that they can use to lock people up indefinitely without having to charge them with anything. Mm-hmm. And the reason I bring up that they have laws is because these people who they're holding, and I'll explain that system in a second, but if they had charges against them, they would bring them. There's no reason not to bring those charges. So basically, they have two main ways of locking people up with no due process, no charges to fight. The first one is called the administrative detention. Administrative detention allows Israel to pick up anybody, man, woman, child, elderly, doesn't matter, and bring them into prison. And technically, they have secret evidence. Literally, they call it secret evidence that they show to the judge. And the judge then, I guess, like winks and nods at, the prosecutor in that case. And they say, yes, this is a national security threat. They have to be in prison. But we can't release the evidence because that would threaten national security. And so that system of administrative detention, just to spell it out, what it means is they're arresting people. They never tell them what they're being charged with. They have no charge to fight. They don't get a day in court. And technically, administrative detention can last for 6 months, but then they can always just keep renewing it. So they have people that they have in prison for years and years and years who never even know what they're being charged with.
I mean, it's funny. October 7th was a pretext for so much, but it certainly wasn't a pretext for treating Palestinian prisoners this way. I mean, we sort of liken, or, October 7th is likened to 9/11, and I think it's apt when it comes to the security state and apparatus that was created after 9/11 here in the United States, like no suspension of laws and all this and holding people indefinitely. But like, that's like how Israel's been doing shit. That's how they've been running. It is a country in a constant state of thinking that, and painting Palestinians as terrorists and that they are in war and under attack constantly. So anyway, that just to add on to that.
No, I mean, 100%. Like, these laws have been around for ages, since long before October 7th. And then the other one that they use is called the unlawful combatants law, which is effectively the same thing, except they use it in Gaza instead of the West Bank. So I'm just totally blanking on his name, but the doctor, he was a pediatrician and the head of one of the biggest hospitals. He wrote an op-ed for the New York Times, basically begging for help. He is being held on unlawful combatant law. And again, he does not know what he's being charged with. Nobody knows what he's being charged with. His lawyer has no...
Dr. Hussam Abu Safia, according to your reporting.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Dr. Abu Safia. His lawyer can't fight the charge because there's no charge. And so, it's just self-evident, like, this man, he's a doctor and a human rights defender. And I think it's fair to say that he was targeted, A, because he was, treating Palestinians, but B, because he was raising awareness for what was happening. I mean, he was writing op-eds. He wrote 2 op-eds in the New York Times. So anyway, they have thousands and thousands of people who are being held without charges. They also have thousands of people who are being held on charges, to be clear. And I think it's safe to assume that some of them probably committed acts of violence. Now, whether or not a occupying force should be able to arrest people is a question I won't address for now. But just focusing on the people who they're not even charging with anything, they're being kept in what the Israeli human rights group B'Tselem characterizes as a network of torture camps. And in these places, I mean, the guy who runs the prison system is Itamar Ben-Gvir, who I think people are familiar with.
You think Smotrich is bad? Like, Gvir is just absolutely fucking terrifying.
He's, he literally, there's videos of him bragging and laughing about how he's starving Palestinian prisoners and lamenting that he's not able to just go and shoot them in the head himself. I mean, this is a guy who he's truly sadistic. He takes great pleasure in torturing Palestinian prisoners. This is something that I think is really important because there's been, those videos came out recently of the Israeli hostages in Gaza. And I will just say, I think those videos are horrifying. Those people are, obviously suffering in a huge way. And without getting into who's to blame for it, or, are they being starved, or is it the famine? Like, you can just put all that aside for a second, because the big thing that you're hearing a lot of people say is, why doesn't Hamas let the Red Cross in to help those hostages, to check on them, to treat them, to feed them, whatever? Hamas has said the Red Cross can come in just as soon as you open up a humanitarian corridor and you stop doing airstrikes while you're distributing aid. Israel has not agreed to those conditions. So because of that, the Red Cross is not going to get in. Now, on the other side, and by the way, the Red Cross under international law has a right to check on prisoners. On October 7th, literally day of, Israel, I forget if it was a law or whatever it was, they passed some instant executive order, essentially, that barred the Red Cross from getting into their prisons. And they have extended it 20 separate times as recently as Wednesday. They no longer are even sending information to the Red Cross about those prisoners. So
about the Palestinian prisoners.
Exactly, about the Palestinian prisoners. So what that means is, the Palestinian prisoners, many of them are not facing a charge. They can't fight a charge. They're in prisons that are being overseen by somebody who's bragging about starving them. We have an unbelievable amount of testimony about the torture, the rape, the electrocution, being attacked by dogs, being starved.
Not just testimony, but, your reporting reminded me of video, that we have video that was put out, I forgot, on like some Israeli TV, which was like security footage from, I believe, the Sardot detention center, where a man was taken in the back and clearly like multiple soldiers are assaulting him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it's just chilling. And that was something they're like, oh yeah, put that into the traumatized hurt category, because I'd forgotten, in your article and your reporting. Just anyway, yeah. The things they subject their prisoners to is insane.
In that particular case, it's sort of unclear in the video if they're actually raping him, but at the very least, what we know, because the doctor said it, is that they sodomized him with a metal rod. And after that happened, Ben-Gvir, among other high-profile Israeli politicians, basically protested for the prison guards' right to do that, because they were, after that video came out, there was, an uproar among some people, and they went in to question those prison guards, and there was a literal riot to stop them from questioning those prison guards that was supported by the guy who runs the prison system. So these people are clearly being tortured. They're being starved. Over 70 of them have died. Last week, a 20-year-old just dropped dead. A healthy 20-year-old who'd been in prison for 3 months just dropped dead. We just found out about somebody who was being interrogated by the Shin Bet. He was handcuffed, and he died from falling from a significant height while handcuffed. So it's not that difficult to figure out what might have happened there. And the Red Cross is not allowed in. So it is a complete black hole. And so the reason I think that is so important to talk about, in addition to just the fact that like it's important in its own right, is because if you are somebody who feels great empathy for the hostages in Gaza, and who sees those videos of them starving and thinks it's horrific, and you think that it's ridiculous that people who talk about ending the war or freeing Palestine don't also talk about the hostages, there is truly no reason why that exact same reasoning can't be carried over to these Palestinians in prison. And again, I'm just, for the sake of argument, I'm not even talking about the people who are being charged with crimes, even though they should also have rights. But for the sake of just talking about hostages, I mean, when I was in Hebron, I met somebody whose brother was a graffiti artist, and he had been spray painting pictures of martyrs in a refugee camp. I forget which one. The soldiers came looking for him to arrest him. They couldn't find him, so they arrested his dad, and they held his dad and said they were going to hold him until his son turned himself in. That's literally a hostage. That is a hostage situation.
Oh yeah.
And so just, it's the double standard. There's so many double standards, but
we've been asked to dehumanize Palestinians. We've been asked to prize Israeli lives over Palestinian lives over and over again. Israeli lives that the Israeli government itself does not care about. Israeli lives who are being used as a political pawn, and whose family members, the poor family members, have protested the treatment, the lack of engagement around a ceasefire from the Israeli government, knowing that their loved ones are precisely that, political pawns. So it's like, don't ask me to take their lives seriously when, Israel, the Israeli government does not take their lives seriously. Like, I'm not going to prize them over any other life that is being unjustly detained and tortured and on and on and on. Although, I mean, again, it's so ridiculous to be like, you're starving the Israeli hostages in a place that is starving. Like, what is the logic behind that? I did want to speak about it because two last things for you. This is wonderful, and thank you for taking the time. One of the groups, again, you mentioned doctors. We know that doctors have been, and humanitarian workers have been, assassinated, targeted, imprisoned, and tortured. And this week it is, again, journalists. The place in the world where the most journalists have been killed is in Gaza. We know foreign journalists are not allowed in, so they are Palestinian, and Gaza City, specifically the Al Jazeera bureau in Gaza City, was just targeted. 5 journalists killed. One of them, Anas al-Sharif, who was sort of, had a huge following. I've played his clips. This is one of those, like, I had to break down and cry moments. The IDF called him a Hamas militant, and just like, that's it, Hamas militant. The New York Times also basically was like, he was linked with Hamas. It's fine. You don't have to feel sad. We can suspend international law when it comes to the protection of journalists because he was Hamas. Just your reaction to these murders, and do you think they are connected? I've seen some people float the idea that they are connected to this, to what Israel now says they're going to do, which is fully reoccupy Gaza and likely move anyone who can survive in this, basically into what they're good at, as you mentioned, which are detention centers, torture camps.
I think you have to assume that killing the most prolific journalist in Gaza right before occupying Gaza City, where he was reporting from, is not a coincidence. They have been smearing this guy for months and months and months, and they put him on a literal kill list, and now they've killed, I think, 2 different people on that list. I do think, though, that there's another part of the story, which is that Israel is very good at flooding the zone, I think is what we call it in Trump world, right? They do so many of these horrific things that you are constantly having to contend with the latest one without being able to seek resolution on the last one. And in this particular case, I think what they've done very effectively is they've gotten all of us into debating whether or not he was actually affiliated with Hamas. I don't know if you've seen this, but there's like this screenshot floating around of a Telegram message that I've heard it's real, I've heard it's fake. I don't know the answer. The message is basically allegedly sent by Anas on October 7th, and it says something like, our heroes are still in there, killing and capturing the enemy. And that, what we are now, like, there are probably millions of people debating whether or not it's real. Jesus. And what we're doing when we debate that is we're debating not whether or not it's okay to kill a journalist because he may be affiliated with Hamas, but whether or not he was affiliated with Hamas. So basically we're accepting their framework that if he was in fact affiliated with Hamas, he was a legitimate military target. And so to me, like, I don't care if he was affiliated with Hamas or not. I from what I've seen, I don't think that he was, but he was very obviously a journalist. I mean, he was out every single day for almost 2 years reporting. So if he was affiliated with Hamas, if he celebrated on October 7th, none of those things make him a legitimate military target. And so now, instead of talking about the fact that Israel just targeted and murdered, 6 or 5 or 7 Al Jazeera journalists, a lot of people are debating whether or not he was in fact Hamas.
Right, and exactly. Well, and it gives them, and it's a happy little distraction for everyone still trying to run cover for all of Israel's crimes, right? Yeah. That if we can focus on this or focus on the one starving child that had a pre-existing condition, and so the New York Times must issue a retraction, which proves the New York Times has been lying this whole time every time they actually report on all of the people starving. I mean, it is deliberate, to your point. This is part of the Hezbollah. This is part of the propaganda machine. And it's like, also, Hamas is the government of Gaza. You interact with Hamas when you get when you work, you know what I mean? When you get a job as a journalist, when you cover what's going on in Gaza. Like, that's literally how governments work. You know, the idea that he was like part of the Hamas militant wing, shut up. I don't care. I don't care about that. That's not true. And also, like, the text message, I don't care. I literally don't care. Like, you cannot kill journalists like this.
Yeah.
And that's the principle. So it is all a distraction machine, the whole thing.
It's also just worth noting that Smotrich quite literally announced a couple months ago that Israel was officially targeting not just Hamas's military wing, but all of the infrastructure that holds up the Hamas government.
Of course.
And so what that means is every sanitation worker, every accountant, every doctor who works at a hospital affiliated with the government. I mean, that is genocidal logic, is what it is. When you broaden out from just Hamas's military and government to now every civil servant who gets a municipal paycheck, you're giving yourself permission to massacre the entire strip. And I think that is why I'm like, I understand the impulse to refute these ridiculous allegations that he was a Hamas militant, because they are ridiculous allegations. I do think it's worth thinking about. I mean, Mohammed El-Kurd is the one who really writes about this the most. It's like, you don't have to be a perfect victim, right? Like, if he was in fact celebrating on October 7th, well, first of all, I think it's fair to say a lot of people in Israel have been celebrating the, destruction and suffering in Gaza this whole time. And none of those people should be legitimate military targets for that.
I mean, Jasper, when a child starves to death and they happen to have a pre-existing condition that is, by the way, related to their malnutrition, that is grounds enough for someone to not be a perfect victim if you're Palestinian. That's grounds enough. Oh, it's your own fucking fault. You were born like that. Yeah. You were born like that in a completely besieged enclave known as Gaza, the place of the most populated and impoverished place on the face of the earth. Like this is so, yeah. Of course, the idea that there could ever be a perfect victim is ridiculous. I mean, you've got Madonna, however, now asking for Pope Leo to go to Gaza, which, hey, there's a pretty good victim right there, because he will be attacked. I do think that he and Taylor Swift, who else should we throw in there? I don't know, maybe someone
into Gaza?
Yeah. I'm just like, who are the untouchable? Like, what's an untouchable?
Right.
We see the way Chris Smalls gets treated, obviously, when he tries to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we should get Taylor Swift in there. I think that's a good idea.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Nothing but Taylor. We have to leave it there. I did want to ask you about the Gaza, actually, maybe really briefly, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Look, without playing his clips, you got to hand it to this guy, Anthony Aguilar, who is a former Green Beret who is working with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is, again, this ostensible aid distribution organization that has been allowing the open murder of Palestinians who are searching for food. He's been making the rounds, blowing the whistle and saying this is a bogus, insanely I mean, he doesn't say genocidal, but like, it is a sham of an institution of an organization. Here's what I had to do. This is what I saw. A child that kissed me on my lips and thanked me, then was murdered in cold blood. So hats off to him. But I wanted to ask you, who is behind this? I mean, I did a little bit of reporting. I did that they were, or just sort of relaying the reporting that it is US based. But it seems it's funded by Israeli businessmen. It's basically run by the IDF. Can you just break it down what you understand about GHF?
Yeah. So right after October 7th, I think in November 2023, basically a group of Israeli businessmen and military and governmental leaders came together and said, we need a plan to take over the aid system in Gaza, because right now it's being run by UNRWA, and UNRWA, commits the crime of humanizing Palestinians and of actually getting them aid. And, Israel recognizes that aid can be used as a weapon. And I should just say that, I think 2 days ago, Smotrich said, we're going to invest more in aid into Gaza, not for humanitarian means, but because it's a more cost-effective way to win the war than deploying more troops. So he's literally spelling it out that they're using aid
we're going to starve them.
We're using aid as a weapon of war. To answer your question,
sorry to just drill down on that. Do you interpret that to mean we're going to use it to lure and murder as has been happening, or we're going to use it as to hold over people, slowly starve, whatever? What do you?
I think the murdering them is incidental. I think, mostly, well, let me answer your question, which I think will answer that. So basically, these business people and governmental leaders, they tap some people in the US who work at this company called Orbis. Orbis is a private intelligence and security contractor. This is not a humanitarian group. There are lots of humanitarian groups and people and experts in the US, but they went straight to the firm that is overseen by CIA operatives. And basically, to make a long story short, Orbis, working directly with the IDF, develops a plan for a new, ostensibly aid distribution system. They then spin it off into a company called Safe Reach Solutions. Safe Reach Solutions is the company that is basically operating the GHF. The GHF is the one actually executing it on the ground. In other words, it's a whole shell system. There's all these companies, but the point is, every last one of them, they're run by intelligence operatives, mercenaries, propagandists. They're not run by humanitarian people. And in this reporting that I did for DropSite, I found that one of the crucial people who worked at Orbis and then moved over to Safe Reach Solutions as soon as it was spun off, her specialization is on what she calls offensive influence, which is basically the system by which you smear and dismantle an adversary and then replace it with something else, which is exactly what they did to UNRWA and then put in the GHF. So to the extent that the system is specifically meant to, round people up into killing fields and mow them down, I think it's almost irrelevant in a way, because what we know is it's a system with war aims. The aims are to get people into a certain place, right? They're using them to displace people, to bring them to a certain place. Mm-hmm. There's good reason to believe, there's lots of evidence suggesting that it is an intelligence operation. Mm-hmm. So the person who I was just referring to, Jen Counter, the propagandist, she actually wrote an article talking about how after the US withdrew from Afghanistan in 2021, we lost all of our intelligence resources on the ground in the Middle East. And so we needed innovative new partnerships with governments and with private and public organizations to gather intelligence. So I think it's fair to say that the GHF fits those characteristics. So I don't know if the plan was to get everybody in one place and shoot them. I think that is incidental. Sure. And it's something that they do everywhere. They're always killing people, but we know it was meant to use aid to get people to where they want. Ultimately, they're going to try to displace them out of Gaza. They're collecting intel on them, and they're using it as a way to just control the population, basically.
Yeah. And I just want to there are 21 senators who are trying to get, the US to stop funding and supporting GHF, which is good. That's been happening for a little bit now. But I just think it's really important to remember that the undoing of UNRWA was one of the biggest pieces of the Hasbara puzzle that played out under Joe Biden. That when Democrats were in power, this is all we were hearing, that the same lines that Hamas was stealing the aid that did arrive, but also that UNRWA employees were militants, that they were Hamas, or what they had a text message that was celebratory of October 7th. It didn't matter what it was, that we were all propagandized to. Mainstream outlets participated this in as well. Remember the whole, is this one person was it 22 UNRWA workers were accused of being militants? So the undoing of UNRWA happened under a Democratic president. Again, that is not hard to imagine given who it was and given Zionism and given all that. But like, it's like, oh, really, motherfuckers? Like, now you're sad that there's no international aid? No shit, man. Like, this has been happening under your nose. I'm glad they're speaking up, but it's like, how did it have to get to this point for people to again sort of spit in the wind at what's happening here? Because we saw it happening, because there's a reason there's an international body that was distributing aid. Anyway, Jasper, Nathaniel, thank you for joining me. You're awesome. Everyone, stop what you're doing right now and go to infinitejazz.substack.com. Subscribe, support. Thank you for your reporting. I hope we do this again.
Thank you so much. I would love to. And if I may just add one thing.
Please.
The newsletter is free because I don't want to gatekeep what I think is very important information. And I have a lot of readers across the Middle East. But if you can't afford it, I ask that you sign up for a paid subscription just to subsidize for everyone who can't.
Yeah. There's only a couple Substacks that I'm like, this is, and for sure I'm signing up. So thank you so much, Jasper, for taking the time. Appreciate you.
Thanks so much, Francesca.
Take care. And thank you guys. Whew, what a doozy of a show. It's not like I have COVID or anything. No, I'm really, what wonderful guests, coming back strong. Very excited. Not excited. I'm just going to read some comments and then F off. Arctic Dragon of the West says, shout out to my fellow educators. Back to school season is upon us. Best of luck this year. Yes, my brother knows that deeply. Best of luck, and fuck ICE. Owen the Schmoopy Dragon, thank you. These are the ideas. Send Oprah to Gaza. Send Katy Perry, although then it'd be like, we can lose her. Rachel Atwood reminding us that Abbas is worse than useless. Epimoo on YouTube. How come the imprisoned Palestinians aren't looked upon as kidnapped hostages? That's exactly what they are. And on top of that, I mean, let's remember the hostage deals that were struck were like, oh, here are, 6 Israeli hostages to 50 Palestinian women and children. And you're like, number one, why are children being held? And number two, like, did you see what you just, like, we openly are admitting that some lives are valued less than others, just even in the prisoner exchange. Let's see. Rainbow Wreck Dragon says, really late to the show, but it was great seeing you in Seattle, and our future mayor, Katie Wilson, killed it. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Rainbow Wreck, for coming through. And Pendulous Dragon reminding us that Christopher Columbus used a lunar eclipse to trick the indigenous people of Jamaica to steal their food. Oh, God. I blame the moon. I feel like the moon is the problem. That's number one on that. And Raymond Rambert reminding us, yes, Gritty is an anarchist and we stand Gritty. We support Gritty, but, Philly Fanatic ran or walked so Gritty could run, or whatever the hell the thing is. Rachel Atwood says Trump is a diddler on the roof and we all saw him. I don't get what the diddler is. That because he was on the roof recently? And thank you, Rural on Twitch. Yes, the Seattle show was fantastic. My wife loved it too, and I hope you guys all enjoy it and listen to it heartily. Rachel Atwood also says Gianmarco Cerezi's crowd work is chef's kiss. It's true. And here's the deal, guys. People put out crowd work because they don't want to burn their material. So what you do is you film yourself as a stand-up, and then you do some crowd work and you talk to people, and then you can put that out if it's funny. You put that out. Yes, somehow we've all turned into like video editors and whatnot, but you do that so you don't have to burn all your material. So you don't like give all your material that you have written out to the world. And, AI is getting trained on it anyway and all that. And Just Julie reminding us, vaccinate, boost, mask, N95 indoors. We love you, Franny. I love you. Remember, you can infect each other for a long time. Do 2 COVID tests after you feel better to minimize the risk. Oh, I have been like fully quarantined. I haven't taken a COVID test in a week because I am afraid I am positive, and I'm like double masking, staying away. And so far, God damn it, knock on wood. But yes, please keep your loved ones safe and yourself safe. You don't want long COVID. You know people who have it. And I will see you in Brooklyn, Rachel. And let's get the fart song going so we can thank all of the patrons at $10 or more for getting the shout out. Patron, bienvenidos. Substack subscribers: Liked House Studio, Randy G, appreciate you. Over on Twitch, we got Hello Lovely Scientist resubscribed at tier 1. That one's for you. Mobius636, thank you for resubscribing. Batmanda0 resubscribed with Prime. Mumbles459. Snake Anthony 210. Holy Beer Dragon, reminding us the Texas redistricting is crazy. And yes, and I will be in Texas. Oh, and let me just read the patron again. Eric Graneth. You're wonderful. And we like you. And we also like you, DJ Patanick, who's become a member on YouTube. You can also get bonus and access to the AMAs if you're a member on YouTube. Don't you fret. My personal preference is Patreon, but don't worry, YouTube is also there. Hey, thank you to Paige Omek, our producer. Thank you to Brent Godin, who's been crushing it with these long-form edits. And thank you to Andy Visoyan, who's been crushing it on the audio streams. We're doing this Tuesdays and sometimes Thursdays. We will see if I can get it together for this Thursday. But I hope to bring Waj back on for a regular little Thursday, Thursday hang, a Thursday assessment. But if not, I'll see you next Tuesday. Got another awesome show and a long form video before then. And remember to fight the power, fight the power, fuck the patriarchy, free Palestine, and don't just bitch about it, be about it. Bye.